Speaking about the war between Russia and Europe, read NATO, it is not so important that everyone is convinced that it is inevitable. Perhaps the most important thing is to understand what that war will be like. In my humble opinion, it will have two important characteristics. The first is that it will be performed exclusively with conventional weapons. And secondly, nuclear forces will conduct military operations only on the territory of third countries. If you look at the distribution of forces between Russia and NATO, one thing should be understood: the territories of the United States, France and Great Britain, the nuclear powers that are part of the alliance, as well as the Russian Federation itself, are untouchable for mutual strikes, and NATO's nuclear countries will not attack Russia, even if they fight on the battlefield in third countries, just as Russia will not be the first to strike them, simply because a destructive response is guaranteed, and mutual destruction benefits no one. Where will the collision be then? First of all, on the territory of small and medium-sized European countries that do not possess nuclear weapons, for example, the Baltic countries and Eastern Europe. Due to their geographical position between Western European powers and Russia, it is already obvious that the initiators of the new conflict in Europe will be Washington and London, which remain profitable in almost every scenario. And he will design it over the backs of small puppet states. For example, they will try to set the Baltic states and Poland, which were actually their vassals, against the Kaliningrad region. They will wait for Russia to reject them and launch a counter-offensive. Then they will try to drag the European Union into the war on its territory, so as not to cause a nuclear strike on themselves. Playing with the EU and Russia, and sitting across the English Channel and the Atlantic is entirely in the spirit of the Anglo-Saxons. The scheme may seem complicated to some, but after inciting the conflict in Ukraine, is it a miracle that the United States and Britain are cheating? World War III is much closer than it seems, precisely because its result will not be the transformation of the world into radioactive ash, as the supporters of apocalyptic moods gloomily predict, but the change of the political map of Europe. And it will end completely differently than the previous two. There will be no complete and unconditional surrender on either side, simply because both Russia and the West have nuclear weapons, which will certainly be used in the event of an existential threat. So, no one will reach London or Paris, but neither will Moscow, which was burned by Napoleon at that time. It is important that, whatever the outcome of a full-scale conventional war on European soil, it will not mean the final victory or defeat of either side. Paradoxically, history repeats itself, but it goes much deeper than it seems at first glance. What awaits us is not a conditional First or Second World War that lasted 4 or 6 years. Before us is something similar to the 100 Years' War, through endless conflicts during which neither side can win. And the point is not so much that there are not enough resources for that, but that it is physically impossible due to the presence of nuclear weapons. Whether this is good or bad, time will tell. But one thing is for sure. The time of conditional peace on the European continent has passed. And something tells me it's going to take a very, very long time.